Sit here.
She's probably mute my phones, huh?
She's recording. Sure.
Thank you.
Why she's not saying recording? Is our mic working? It looks that way. Recording. So we will open our morning workshop. And start with a public works update from Public Works Director Jeff Hunter and County Engineer Seth Skirl.
Well, what we're going to do is because Jen's got other commitments, we're going to I'm going to turn it over to Jen. She's going to discuss the dually money, how it works with the fair board.
Okay, just really brief. I handed you the resolutions and backup documentation that we have in our office in regards to the dually money and Fund 144. Basic summary of that is Klickitat County is responsible for the management of the fair. The county has gone into agreement with the fair board to allow them to operate and manage the fair. We have an agreement in place there. And the money for the dually fund is used solely for the public purposes of the Klickitat County Fair, not including the rodeo. So that's the basics. So you can use the money for the fairgrounds, capital projects, but you cannot use it for anything that could be related to the rodeo.
Which, so essentially you can do a livestock barn, but you can't do new bleachers.
Correct.
Who gets to pick the projects? I mean, have they been deemed in this to be the ones to pick the projects, or they just make recommendations to us?
I believe that they make recommendations. The board has the approval of the budget authority.
Yes.
Excuse me, the Board of Commissioners has
it. Yes.
Sorry, wrong. Two boards here.
Board of County Commissioners. So you might want to read.
Yeah.
Through the document.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. We don't have to keep going on this. We'll.
Okay.
No, we just wanted to. I just wanted you asked. We just wanted to bring this forward so you were aware. Thank you, Jen.
You're welcome.
And as this started in 2015, I would say this is a new development historically.
I just wanted to bring it because I haven't got started because we're a little bit busy at this time of year, but I'm still trying to squeeze in the bid package for them for the new facility. So this is probably, I'll wait for some direction from the board.
Okay. We'll take all of our time reading a document.
I just wanted to give you guys actually we'll go through it pretty quick because this is one of the few weeks we don't have anything on your consent agenda, no public hearings and no payments. With that, take over.
Construction. So Courtney Road contractors working through the punch list, get that finalized. The Rock Creek Old 8 Bridge, we're still receiving submittals from the contractor. They have not set a start date yet. They do have a fish window that isn't open yet that they have to abide by. So we're not behind on that. Slope flattening and our guardrail, all the slope flattening has been completed. They're installing guardrail on Lake Highway this week. White plastic edge lines, we're waiting for contracts and bonds to be signed by the contractor in return so we can get that executed. And we're still collecting traffic counts between other work. On the design end, curve warning signs and guideposts will be opened on the 15th. We do have a few prospective bidders looking at it and have received a few questions. Our data collection project, we're working with the consultant to complete that contract paperwork. They've submitted their information onto WashDOT. We're waiting for approval for that. The Bickleton area paving project, the federally funded project, the construction plans are being completed and we will be sending construction funding approval documents to WashDOT for review this week. Sundale Old Highway 8, we just received news that DAP did approve it, so we can now make offers to the landowners for the right-of-way needs on that The bridge repair bundles, the federal funded projects, the drafts of the funding documents are at WashDOT waiting for their approval. And preliminary work continues on our upcoming bridge replacement project on Shrons Road, the Snowden Road scoping project, and the overlay project on Sunnyside Road. That's about it.
Okay. Maintenance projects, we're still working away at the base repair on Market Street and culverts on East Road. West End, we're finishing up the base repair on Sleepy Hollow, and we're repairing the sand shed. We have some rust starting to show, so we're getting that sand blasted and getting that cleaned up. We do that work ourselves. Upcoming facilities, work and events. Sidewalk, asphalt was removed yesterday, and the curb guys are coming in this week. I think they're due Thursday. They'll pour the curb, and then our guys are going to start forming up the sidewalks. And we'll finish that project off this month. HVAC units, all the units have been wrapped, and they've reduced, all units have been reduced 4 to 5 decibels. Sheetrock is to be removed in health. That is not a wrap. That is a considerably different type of a thing. And that work will begin next week. Pioneer Center, we're still 3rd week. A jail roof is now scheduled, has a firm date, start date of September 5th to start the replacement of the roof. We've been working with the Sheriff's Department. Superior Court's where it is. Dispatch, we talked about that. I'm going to take that off, but we'll talk about, we'll put the other project on. Events, Back to Bash was good, very successful, preparing for the fair. And preparing for the fair this year has been a little rough. We're down some people. And so if you hear any complaints, I have the office staff out working. They're out. So we have one person that answers the phones. Normally we have 2 because they have to deal with customers and answer, but they're out working, and we'll have a few other people working out at the fairgrounds. So
I tried to get you some help, but it didn't work.
I appreciate that, but I actually have an ask. We might as well just go to that. Yeah. I talked it over with Courtney, and today, one of the many things we tried to get taken care of this morning, and talk to Sandy, and they can actually work at the fairgrounds, but we have to pay Public Works. I don't have any problem paying it. But they can't charge the grant or any of that because they only have so much money. So if you guys are willing to allow us to do that, we would just give them a charge code number, and Pam will work with the auditor to make sure that that works, that there's a transition. We charge a lot of other departments' budgets, but there's very few people that actually do that. The reason we do is because we're the people that do everything. Not that, I mean, do everything with facilities and get stuff done, but very few departments have that authority. So we're going to talk to the auditor to allow that happen, as long as the board is okay with that.
No, I never thought about that, but yeah, no, that works the same way you charge everybody else when you go work for them.
Yes.
It's dead. Mics are dead, so everybody bear with us. Oh, now they're on. Now it's dead. I'm green. I guess I'll talk up. So yeah, that's the problem with them, is they get their income from litter pickup. So if they're not picking up litter, they don't have any wages to pay the employee to do the whatever. But yeah, no, if you guys can finagle it a different way, they get their community service hours in, and you guys get some help. So
yeah, we desperately need help down, people. We'll get into that here a little bit later too. So if the board's okay, that's what we'll do. I'm just looking for board approval.
He's looking for one more yes, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Fuel Island, we're working on the test pits. I'll back up to Annex 4. It is complete today with Aaron. Make sure everything, and we'll talk about furniture, see how we can help. And we got a whole room full of furniture, old stuff. We'll figure out what they want. And if they don't want it, we're just gonna, honestly, we're just gonna get rid of it. I don't want to hold it over for a surplus sale. It's not worth surplusing most of it. And we'll spend more money moving it from point A to point B back to point A. Radio tower, the tower construction starts this week. Actual erecting the tower. You can actually see the site from Brooks. If you drive up 97, you can see you'll be able to see everything, but you can see the shed. You can actually see the shed. Let's see, some follow-up issues. Guardrail on Snow. We had somebody hit guardrail on Snowden now, so we're gonna go out and look at that. We had an accident, but we do have the people, so. Cell block B are the vents. We're gonna try a different thing. We tried to use the, because we have piles and piles of the why does the name plexiglass from the COVID stuff, which we hung on to. So we actually tried to convert one of those into a vent system because they line up pretty good. We're a little afraid those might be a little weak. So we have a bunch
or
of
breakable and sharp.
Right. So we put those in, and we're not real happy with how that operated. So we have some old sign material that we just usually recycle. Aluminum prices aren't worth a crap right now anyway. So the thought is we're going to try to see if we can get those to work. So we're trying to keep the cost of that project down. So we'll look into that. That's our next, just to kind of keep you up to speed on what's going on. I had another facility, or we had a facility tech turn in his resignation. So he'll be done on the 18th. So we'd like the ability to go out. We're already out to add for a 36, but this guy was our top guy, our 38. They're just getting offered. There's nothing, I can't compete. I mean, it is what it is. Because we tried to steal somebody from someplace close, and they get paid way too much money. But you know, again, we'll do what we can. We just have the ability to rehire that position.
I know this is road fund, but have you guys ever done a salary study in there to see where your comparables are?
Not to correct you, but it's the general fund.
Oh yeah,
The facilities guys, yes. And we've done some stuff. It's just, you know, people are getting crazy, and there's no way we can, you know, we can't do what they're doing for people. We just can't. I mean, I wouldn't feel comfortable doing it. You know, they're paying them, they're working 6 hours, paying them for 8. Just really weird. I mean, it's just crazy. Paying them, you know, $40, $50 an hour because they can't find anybody. I mean, you know, we'll just have to kind of limp along and grow people as we can. But we'd like the ability, in case somebody does come, to at least, you know, pay them at a 38 if we get somebody. Right now, our advertisements for a 36 to replace the position we have. Now we'll have 2 positions.
So you are asking for verbal to advertise for the 38.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. I have one other thing, and I apologize again, but again, it's somebody local, so I have another guest. And we want to talk about the flat top project. The shelter is leaking. It isn't leaking inside, but they're prefab shelters, and the shelter's coming apart. So Jeff asked us to take a look at it, and we have, and it's about $2,000 for us to go up and replace it, or replace them, get some new siding, or get that section of new siding and put it back on and secure it.
So this is the flat top exterior siding, the shelter exterior siding that I've mentioned to the board repeatedly. It started separating in 2 locations 2 years ago, and that's what we're talking about, replacing that exterior siding. Public Works has informed me that through a process of investigation as to what that prefab shelter is made out of, that they can either get materials locally or order it from the original manufacturer and just replace those panels. If not, actually refasten them, recalk them. So at $2,000, that's a deal, and we shouldn't let it go on. And to be clear, we don't have any
Leaks inside.
moisture penetration into the shelter at this time, but that could change with any winter storm event. Sorry. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
I don't know, tap on it. Yours are dead now too.
This one's not on.
That's okay. I was thinking, I checked them a lot. But again, we can talk about it. It's probably the time to do it before it penetrates.
Do it in here.
So am I wrong to assume there's no budgeted money anywhere in our budget for this, and you would be asking for a supplemental?
Well, this might be a good, we don't have any of his projects on our list. So.
And this wasn't a project in my budget either.
Right.
I do have the annual
Right, so
maintenance
technically
and
this
repair
would be
budget.
you asking for a supplemental and then hiring them to do the work.
Yeah, eventually we would
And-
like, Jeff and I kind of talked about this, maybe it's a good time to broach this subject. It's just, you know, with everything going on, neither one of us have had time to sit down and actually dig into this, but ideally it'd be better to put those projects on either the capital or non-capital list. You know, and then we would just.
Long term, yeah.
Yes, and that's where that would go on the non-capital list. So you can do it, however, you know, you can either give Jeff the supplement and we can take it on, or we can update the non-capital list to do a supplement and do it that way. Board's choice. If, again, the board's for doing that, though. Predetermined.
Are we automatically doing this, or you want permission to do this?
People, they can barely hear.
All right, for those of you that are online that can't hear, all our mics are not working, and IT suggests a reboot that will take 15 minutes, but we don't want to just pull the halt to everything, so we're going to finish our discussion. Yeah, I think we get it done. Worry about where the dollars arrive.
Up to this point, historically, those kinds of maintenance, repairs, things that I've done for radio sites, facilities have come out of my budget, but I'm over that budget. If we add these projects, the fence
Which
at
fund is-
top will be the same.
Which fund is this? Is this the,
135 communications,
so this is the one that you pay dispatchers out of?
some, half roughly.
The 310 or the three new,
Yes, they would all, they're not grant qualified. The casuals and
the casuals, that's the word I was,
can't go into the grant, no.
right, okay.
Do you have time to get it done before the snow hits?
We're gonna get it done. We have to get it done before the snow hits. Yeah, we have the time. It's just coming up. How we're gonna do it is the main thing.
What's your estimate on the cost for the fence replacement?
That's expensive.
Well, two things, the repair of the existing fence, as we've
Right.
done multiple times in the 8.5 years I've been here, to the same result. So we're pushing the insanity button, versus a replacement of that fence with something that's more resilient. So we won't be in this position every year. Those are two totally separate things. The repair of the existing fence has generally come in between $2,000 and $5,000, depending on the damage. Right now, it's damaged pretty significantly because we didn't fix it from the year before. So we've had two winter storm damage to that fence now, 2 seasons worth. So that is, last year it wasn't deemed serious enough to create a security risk to replace it again. And we're working on more permanent solutions. But that permanent solution,
It's right at $80,000.
one of those permanent
Yeah,
solutions.
because the problem is the fence was never built, was never set up originally for that type of snow load. It's a lot shorter fence, so to.
And for the snow machines to run over it when it gets overtopped by snow.
Right,
There's no way it's just snow load.
no,
How deep is the snow there?
Depends on the year, but I've seen it 14 feet.
So the only, technically, the way to keep the snowmobiles from not driving on it is having a 14-foot fence.
Correct.
Whether
The
it's
snow-
metal or wood.
The
Doesn't
snow's
matter.
14 feet, you'd need a fence that's 16 or 18.
Right.
Or
Or-
15, just to.
Yeah. Or to make the fence out of something that's not gonna be crushed by that load. And that's why we're looking into all those options
Yeah,
What are the fences at the other sites?
at the same location, same as ours. And they get damaged in the same places where the snow machines can
Is
run over
there
them.
not a way to, okay, you got cyclone fence currently.
Mhm.
Is there not a way to go around the cyclone fence every 10 feet with 20-foot steel poles, just driving them in the ground? And put cable on that upper part? So when the snow comes in, you don't have snowmobiles driving over because you now have a cabled fence. That's what everybody sees. I mean, that ain't $80,000.
it's possible, but be honest with you, I.
Is it still gonna destroy this fence if,
I would be very cautious about putting cable up where people snowmobile, and knowing that. Because people can get hurt very seriously, even though they shouldn't be up there. It's a DNR property and it's open to the public. I mean, our site, they shouldn't be driving over, but I get really leery. We had that, internally, we talked about that as an option. Or putting wrought iron type fence, but again, if somebody gets hurt up there, even though they're trespassing, we could still be at fault.
so what's your $80,000 fence answer?
That's a brand new, like 16-foot chain link fence.
Do they break it everywhere or just one spot?
Just in the locations that people can drive snowmobiles. The
That's
east end,
not to do the whole fence all the way around. That's
80,000 just for,
3 sides.
3 sides. It's in excess of $60, $70 a foot just for the material.
I was shocked just as you were. But at that height of fence, everything has to be of a
Yeah. but
heavier,
I get it, but if we're spending $2,000 a year to fix it,
I can-
technically I can fix it for the next
lot.
40 years. Yep. Cheaper than putting a new fence.
well,
That's-
80 years if you're doing it every other year.
Well,
That's
no,
a-
because you do it every other year, the cost doubles to 5,000, so.
It's a steep location in a lot of places. Is there any way just to block access?
I've approached the DNR about that. The same problem exists. You'd have to have a gate on the road and there's 2 access points, the road access points during non-snow conditions, and they could just come through the trees when they're on a
I was gonna say, you're not
snowmobile.
gonna stop them
So
again.
for snowmobiles, you really couldn't stop them short of doing what we're talking about, a fence that is never overtopped by the snow. Or something solid enough under the snow that isn't gonna be crushed by the compaction of snow machines overtopping.
I mean, we can approach, I didn't think we would. do
We
this,
weren't
but
gonna bring this to you
No.
today, so we hadn't
Because
come to us.
we haven't come to a conclusion. We didn't expect we'd be spending $80,000 this year. on building.
Recycle some guardrail or something and just start looping that fence
Well-
with some guardrail.
So I guess the issue is the fence gets overtopped. We have a security fence there. Have we ever had any issues with the actual building? We've never had any issues with the actual building, those people that are.
Nobody has ever tried to gain access to the building at that location.
And we have cameras that are looking down on it there too.
We have 1 camera yet. And the doors are alarmed, so if the door alarm goes off and nobody has called in, so one of the, maintenance people or whoever, there's a sign on the door. Call before you enter or we'll send the cops. If they don't call and the door alarm goes off, then I remote into the cameras and see what's going on there. That's what we have in a few of our locations, not all, and I'm working on getting it at all.
So another thing you could do is just put up like a wrought iron on top. It's, a piece of iron that's 4 inches high at the top of the fence. So when they do drive over it, they can't, with poles at 4 ends, and then let the fence.
Yeah, we have to look, we haven't gone up there. That's why we really haven't broached this. I've just given you a ballpark. That's the worst case scenario. I'm not saying that's the solution.
Okay. Well, I guess my answer is I'm not spending $80,000 on that fence.
Yep. Say I'll spend a little bit of money and put 4 long poles that you can put warning signs on
Did that.
up there at 14
Yep.
feet.
I already did that.
Underground cables or buried nails
Yep.
or
Security fence, secured facility, I can't remember. Do not cross, all that stuff. Yeah,
minefield.
Mhm.
not that serious, but yeah, like I said, liability becomes an issue, but we did sign that. I think it was 2 or 3 times ago when we fixed it. That was one of my solutions. We extended the corner posts up so it wouldn't become covered by snow, and put that signage facing towards the roadway where they enter. They did not respect that. Every year since, when we replaced those, and I don't know if people are pulling them or, well, it had to be the last time people pulled them, because I had them drill and pin them after we found them in the spring. They were just laying down on the snow and then on the ground later.
Is this area, is it easy enough? Say you put a 14-foot fence in, or 28-foot fence, or whatever the heck, could they cruise around it easily, or are we interrupting their day?
They're going out of their way to get there. Up until the point that there's evidence. My belief is that they're jumping off of the concrete shelter that AT&T has right across the road from us. There's signs that they have chipped that concrete slab roof off by trying to jump over it or from it. And they've also, one year went up, I discovered it when I went on my visit, where the catwalk material, ice bridge over there, propane tanks, 2 big heavy posts that hold that up with U-brackets, U-bolts. They had landed on that and crushed it down on top of broke all the brackets and crushed it down on top of the propane tanks. And whoever did that, I hope they messed up their machine, because that's totally irresponsible, because they know what's under there. There's a big giant, 2 towers.
So it's Elk Meadows is up there. I don't know if they're open in the winter, but do you think it's just local, or
No.
is it's tourists that find it and come in?
No, don't ever say that. I got bashed the first year I mentioned that it was snowmobilers. It couldn't be just ice fall from the tower and such, because of the way it was being damaged. And the local snowmobile clubs and local snowmobilers came after me with vehemence. I assured them I did not believe that any of our local citizens would knowingly do anything like that. The Flat Top Snow Park is, right there at the base of this access road, and it's open to anybody and everybody. And the problem is, it's not a the road that goes up to the top of Flat Top is not a groomed snowmobile trail. But as soon as one of us goes up there to check anything in the wintertime on snow machines or a cat, and we make that first track, then everybody follows us if they don't go on their own.
That new funky dot up there next to the microphone.
That just means it's recording.
Oh, that's a recording dot. I don't remember if I've ever seen that before.
It's the same one that's on the top left.
Sorry, we've taken way more.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Come up with another plan. 80 grand, not gonna happen.
No, we were just throwing out, it wasn't suggesting that. We'll get a price to repair the fence, and our guys can do that.
How much is the fence?
And look, somebody's entering the Flat Top shelter as we speak.
How much is the fence up here on Sadus?
Not as far, a lot of it is Flat Top's way up there. You're paying people to go a long ways up there. And that road is not, it's probably good for, off road, but it's not the greatest road. It takes half their day is driving to and from. That's why that's another reason the cost is so expensive. But we'll get a price to repair the fence. And, we haven't looked into the fence yet as far as repairing it. So we'll get a cost of what that'll be.
How the fence is how big now? How tall? Current fence?
That's a 7-foot security, so it's 6 foot with
2-foot
barbed wire, yeah, security wire.
Can you use your video camera and look at the fence and have him see it? And when you drive up there to look at it, take a couple guys up there and just fix the fence?
Well, we can, yeah.
We've already done that. I've done screenshots from the video and given that to Jeff and Rick in a meeting we had not too long ago.
We could do it. We just,
if you're gonna drive up there, it's probably 2-3 hours worth of repairs.
Well, I'm trying to figure out how the fence is. Obviously, the poles aren't collapsing, quarter posts.
Correct.
So you have a top bar and a
Topsoil.
cyclone fence type, that's that cheapo galvanized tubing that's probably buckling and bowing. Is it breaking the clamps off the side and just collapsing the whole thing, or is it just caving down in the middle?
Some of, go ahead. You've
Yeah,
seen it all. You're the expert.
depends. Some of it's collapses the whole fence. We fixed it fast. Before Jeff was even here. I mean, it was almost a day one thing. Sometimes it crinkles the whole fence. Sometimes it, you know, it just depends. That's why I usually send up our PM who, you know, that's just part of his job, and he'll put together the cost. The pictures show us stuff, but Jeff's, you know, Jeff has his cameras positioned good, but again, it's not the same as actually getting out there and.
Right. I guess to me, it's like, I understand a cyclone fence, its purpose.
Yes.
It's bendable galvanized tubing with some little tiny aluminum straps that tie things on. I'm thinking we should be able to over-engineer it a little bit with some steel posts and some steel cross members that would then hold the cyclone fence where it's supposed to be.
And we'll look at that.
Without 80 grand, you know, or even getting a steel cross member on the top. It's just, there's got to be, I'll leave it to you guys. There's got to be a better option.
No, we're looking again. That was just, we have not really looked into it completely. That was just a quick offset thing. You know, I think the best thing to do would be repair the fence for this year and secure the facility. And then give us time to kind of come up with a different plan for the fence.
I'm gonna say, I don't want to continue just fixing it and then knowing next year it's going to be breaking. So we do need to be making steps towards a permanent fix. It's just, let's try some experimentation in there. So it's not a Taj Mahal fence.
This wasn't about that, but this was, again, that was the worst. Dan,
Yeah, no,
you always like the worst case. There it is.
I don't like the worst case.
I mean, we have other issues up there. Again, this is no reflection on Jeff.
Right.
Jeff didn't build the sites, but the site was not built for the location it's in. You know, it should have been probably, instead of a shelter, which I'm just not a big fan of those things. They sell them to you because it's easy to do, but they don't last very long. Not like a stick-built building.
How big a perimeter are we talking on this fence, by the way?
Yeah, 50 by 50. It's one of our smaller perimeters. Yeah. Typically we, in the lease, and I think this lease includes 100 by 100 piece of ground, but we only fenced at 50 by 50. Don't quote me on that.
Moving on.
Okay. That's all we have.
Okay, any questions? No. Thank you, guys.
You?
When were you thinking about doing the rebirth? When we go to lunch?
Yes, you're up there.
Yeah.
I mean, if the people on Zoom can't hear us anyway, we can always just reboot it now. And then they can log back on in 15 minutes when it comes around. Either that or they can continue to watch the video and not hear us.
My administrative assistant texted and said she could hear us fine. So I don't.
Well, I would imagine the only mic working is in that overhead projector up there, but actually it's above your head.
Yeah.
But then the light isn't even on it. So. Okay. All right, we'll keep going the way it is and we'll reboot at lunch, I guess. I'm gonna hand her their notes back.
Changes and updates that provided a new sheet for you. All the changes or updates. On your consent agenda later today, we have item number 4, resolution to rescind the Newell Road Fire Emergency Declaration. And item number 8, amendment to grant agreement for the 20 SHSP. There's an error in that, should have an S in front of the H, to extend that through January 2024. And that was we already had an amendment. If you are questioning that, there was an error in the way the state wrote up that amendment. So we're having to re-execute that amendment. Public safety radio system. Juniper Point, the tier 1 folks investigated and resolved the coverage issues for the Rural 7 repeater at that location and determined that the emergency management public safety system was not having the same issues. And I'm working with Rural 7 to see if there's options to help them continue to operate and maintain their radio system or their single standalone repeater at that site as well. But that issue's been resolved for both parties. The generator remote start malfunction that we experienced a couple of weeks ago, actually during the Newell Road fire, is still being investigated. It turned out to be a failure of technology in the alarm switch, have a remote start stop on there, and something in that technology failed, and they're working on fixing it. It is now in a mode that we can't remotely start stop it, but it will not cause the generator to run inappropriately or keep it from running when it should on a power failure. On the Klickitat site, generator failure again was at the tail end of Newell Road. It didn't start on its weekly test run, and then it failed to start during a power outage a few days later. So I had our maintenance vendor go check it out. They've now been in contact with Public Works because that generator was installed not very long ago when we upgraded the site at the Klickitat Fire Hall. They're in discussions about how to resolve the fuel supply issues.
Is that, remind me, is that the generator that just got replaced and went to a fancy generator over the Home Depot style generators that have been there?
No, this
That's
is a
a
brand
different
new one. There, up to this point, there was no backup power besides our battery plant at the Klickitat
But
radio.
you don't know whether this is a.
Yes, this is a commercial grade. It's about the natural gas fuel supply, I'm being told. Yeah, when it calls to start, it calls for too much natural gas. The system can't supply enough, and so it fails to start and then goes into that mode and won't try anymore. They're looking into the options how to resolve that. There has to be a reserve of natural gas, I'm being told, in the pipe of such a length that it can draw that first out of it and not have a gap then. Above my knowledge, my specialty,
Okay.
But
Makes sense. The gas in the pipe is bleeding off essentially.
yeah, it doesn't provide enough volume for the startup. And this has been a problem a couple of times now, but it'll go for months and months and not have an issue. And then all of a sudden, so I don't know if it's the natural gas provider that has an issue with their system. But like I said, Public Works is looking into it along with my vendor to make sure we're on the same page and we get a final solution. Although in my opinion, the final solution would be to have propane there like all other sites because natural gas is not reliable. Yakima Fire District 5, the surplus equipment is still in progress. Haven't seen an invoice from them yet or any agreement to surplus that to us, but they're still telling me that for $1,500, we'll get a lot of stuff that will save us tens of thousands of dollars. We already discussed both the security fence and the shelter exterior wall damage at Flat Top. And I expect the annual tier 1 and tier 3 documentation to be submitted in September. I've put the Diamond Gap Cellular proposals on hold. Commissioner Anderson, haven't had time to do any more on that as we discussed in our last meeting. At many of them, yeah. the Newell Road was just the largest of them. We've had many. And the Senior Services Mount Adams Transportation Radio System project, their mobile radios in both their vehicles and in their base station locations are planned for the week of August 21st. And all that seems to be going well. So the PUD expansion project is on hold as well, both because the PUD and myself are tapped out this summer. And that's everything under the radio system as it currently stands. Any questions? Okay.
What is the, you're moving the repeater up to Satis Pass?
So that's under the radio project, Satis Pass site. So the trailered repeater has been down at the pass level for many years now,
Right.
to mitigate the gaps in coverage between really around Box Canyon Road on 97 out to the county line. Now that we have grid power up there and we're getting to a point that the tower, as you heard earlier from Public Works, is going to be erected tomorrow. That should all be out of the way. There should be room to safely park this repeater trailer at the new site on a high point. So I asked a long time ago, as soon as I can get that moved, we'll have better coverage, especially on the other side of the pass, but also towards Box Canyon Road. So I'm going to move that up as soon as possible and station it there instead of.
Where's it now? Is it at Tony's property out there?
No, it's at an undisclosed location. We've had
Within
issues
5 miles of?
right at the pass. Don't make me tell you where.
No, that's good with me.
Yep.
I'm just looking for ballpark.
Thank you. Yes, it's right at Satis Pass.
Nobody can hear us today anyway.
Right. Okay. Any other questions about the radio project? Right now, there is a delay due to some equipment availability, and we're trying to mitigate that. I'm reaching out and thinking outside the box to help mitigate that, and also some issues with what can and can't be done during high fire season or high danger during fire season with welding and such. So we're gonna pull out all the creative options that we can to make sure we can turn that site on sooner rather than later. But right now, if things don't change, our estimation is that it'll be the middle of October to the end of October, given the current circumstances. And I'll turn the 911 call taking and public safety radio dispatching over to Chief of Operations, Phil.
Good morning. So you'll notice my section here is fairly small. Jeff has taken the rest of it. So first, I want to thank everybody for the Facebook kudos and the acknowledgement from the dispatchers. We have a nice group. And like you saw, they're ready to come in. Just the other night, I'm monitoring radio traffic for some of the new fires that popped up in the evening. And I'm getting messages from the other dispatchers at home. Do you need me to come in? Which is great. I don't have to track them down or see who's available. They're already messaging, asking, hey, we're ready to come in. We're hearing there's fires popping up, which is nice.
Well, hopefully if we can control the burnout and the overtime.
Yeah.
You know.
And those are two separate issues, because even through the burnout, we've seen it. When the dispatchers that are working are in trouble, the rest is going to come in and jump in and help out, which is nice that, like I said, even through the burnout, we're not leaving a person behind. So,
How many off topic? How many fires did they find out here? Was there 3 total?
there was 3, possibly a 4th that they didn't find.
Which day? You got to be more
The
specific.
evening.
So
one
there was the one on Rock Creek. Emery's property was the original call.
And Latigus was a property and
Lattigus, yep, off of Bickleton Highway, so north of the Bickleton Highway. The exact location I didn't try to determine,
right.
but there was one fire, but it looked like to some people at a distance observing that there might have been 2 fire never reported more than one
Oh,
at
that's
that location.
Yeah, so, yeah, so again, appreciate that, and the communication officers appreciate the recognition. So we currently have 2 communications officers in training. One of them, and a different communications officer, came out at a training on July 17th, and she is doing great, which is quite an accomplishment for starting out during fire season. Still participating in the 911 training standardization and certification project going on with the state. EMD program still continues. That's going to be an ongoing project. We did text to 911 project. We did turn on the text capability for one of the carriers. And due to the current workload, we haven't been able to test the additional carriers and take that time to focus on that. So, however, the text to 911 is moving forward, and we do have that available for one of the carriers. So it's going to be Verizon. There's a couple other carriers, and once I'm able to get going with those, I'll prioritize by those that actually have service in the county, and then the rest, right? Then once we have everybody on board, we'll be making more announcements and public education on that to get going on that. So another news, the state 911 grant was executed. Thank you for that. So we're moving forward with the new fiscal year. And the cross-discipline training task force that we've been working on, more and more we're seeing the need for that. The knowing what fire is doing, knowing what law enforcement is doing, and everybody knowing why we do things at the communication the way we do. We're still seeking participation from a lot of the players. However, we're still moving forward. We already have scheduled training and invitations going out. So those that want to participate can come, and those that don't, well, we'll meet with them on a separate time when they have issues as a result. So that's all I have. Any questions for me?
I don't, other than I believe your cross-discipline training task force is a good thing. And even though you can't make people attend, every little bit helps.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna start pushing that button harder and harder.
Did you have the Knoll Road debrief yet?
The after action review, no, that is scheduled for tomorrow afternoon.
Tomorrow.
On the cross training, is there any certificates or anything they earn?
No, so the cross training would be more focused on between the law enforcement agencies that we serve.
Okay.
The fire department, EMS.
But we need some more training in the fire halls too, because you listen to the scanner and, you know, truck 532 is headed out. Great. Is that a tender? Is that a brush truck? Do you guys have that on your?
We do a couple.
And then you call them up to, you know, Tony up in the field. He's like, great, but do you really know what each of these trucks actually is?
Yeah. And that's a whole different issue with training.
And why they don't say tender 532 or brush 532 is absolutely beyond me.
Yeah.
But it drives me nuts just listening.
Yeah, and we get a lot of that when the incident command saying, what do I have coming? And we're like, well, we have a few of these and a whole bunch of numbers.
And that was a new requirement in the last 2 years,
In
right?
the last 2 years,
Yeah,
we
we
switched
made
that.
And our chief's been pushing it, but every time I hear our guys, none of them say anything.
Yeah.
Under stress, the people
Every meeting.
that have been here the longest, under stress, they revert back to muscle memory, and it's a hard thing to retrain.
Yeah, so, but yeah, we're trying and then,
Well, that was the other question is, do you guys have a list of each department's trucks that you can go, okay, 532 is a tender?
yeah,
You know,
we do have that. And when it's a small response, we will go on the list and translate what they really meant to say and put it on our screen. The problem being is when we have multiple departments, one example, Rural 7, you have 20 trucks going at once, which is a great response, and we're not going to slow it down. But keep, checking on those makes it a little difficult. But yeah, we're working with the fire departments. That's actually been brought up a couple of times. But and that's the idea, is if they understand why we need it, if they understand why other groups need it, then it makes it better, especially with the larger incidents, and like the Newell Road fire would be one. You have combined incident command. You have deputies, fire, and multiple fires, and they each need to know what's going on, what the other one's doing, and we need to anticipate what they're doing. So it would make it so much better. So that's the idea. So
Still working on it.
yeah, still working on it. That's my section. So I'll turn it back to Jeff to tell us more about the fires.
Well, you can see the list. I added 5 more since I submitted this on Thursday morning at 10 a.m. I think the McGowan, here it's listed as McGowan Springs. I think that's what the DNR named it. It's McGowan Road. This is what we referred to it as. What I've been told is DNR is shying away from using road names for fire incidents. So they're picking something else. But the fire that started on the 3rd on McGowan Road, last report I heard was it was between 7 and 10 acres that night. We had level 1, 2, and 3 evacs in place for a good portion of that evening, and kept the level 1s in place overnight until the next morning, when the fire incident command made me aware that that could be released, and I confirmed that with the deputy. Also on the 3rd, and it's at the same time it was. Yeah, there's, these are all blurring together. Yeah, there was a motorhome that caught on fire next to a residence on Woodland Road. That motorhome then spread to at least 6 other vehicles. Rural 7, with the help of the city of Goldendale and Centerville, went out, extinguished that fire. We're going to send somebody out later that evening to check on it because it was still hot with all those vehicles, that heat doesn't dissipate. Before they could get back out there, that fire rekindled and went into the trees. So we went back on active alert for evac notices, but they got on it fast enough and hard enough that it didn't spread significantly to cause evac levels. At the same time, and before most of the fire units got to the 100 Woodland Road fire, another fire was reported next to a barn at 700 Woodland Road, just off the Bickleton Highway. That fire turned out to be small. 1 brush truck responded and was able to get that under control and extinguished in a short order. Then on the 6th, we had the 2 fires that we talked about just a minute ago. One on Rock Creek Road, Emery's property, and then another one north of the Bickleton Highway, somewhere east of Rock Creek. Both of those are most likely lightning strikes, as we had that thunder and lightning storm go through that evening. And then on the 7th, it was fairly early in the day. That was yesterday. Box Canyon, out at the end of Box Canyon Road, there was another lightning strike fire, suspected to be lightning strike fire, that didn't get over an acre, I don't believe, before they got there and got it put out once the smoke was reported. And then there's the Newell Road fire. Right, there's volumes I could say about that. If you have any specific questions, I know you were all engaged and I kept you up to date as best I could during the entirety of that fire, and the Type 2 team put out a lot of information. Some things to note for our department specifically is that as of August 1st, we had a total of 271.25 employee hours and 213.75 volunteer hours over an 8-day period that were spent on that fire response. So almost as many volunteer hours as employee time, but a significant amount, especially given an 8-day period. The level 3 evacuations were in place for 8.5 days. And then level 1s and 2s were released, I think, on Wednesday of last week when after the type 2 team left, they had a type 3 PNR team on site and an incident commander. So the sheriff's office didn't release those level 1s and level 2s until after they were done with their operations. Declared it mopped up. I think it was a significant distance from the perimeter. I won't quote any numbers. There's got too many in my head right now. Yeah, so yeah, like I said, a lot that I could say about all of that. The FMAG declaration that came in Sunday night, the 23rd, overnight on the 24th, somewhere in that midnight to 1 a.m. time period. Now we're working on the recovery and the FMAG grant program. We have put up what we're calling a Newell Road Fire Damage Report Portal in cooperation with the assessor's office, because they'll need some of this information. We've got 4 responses as of the end of the day yesterday. I've talked to one landowner out there who is currently estimating his total losses to be just shy of $1 million for pasture, hay, fencing, all of that. So significant amount. And like I said, that FMAG and recovery process is going to be ongoing for months. And we're working to get a kickoff meeting with the state FMAG coordinator and my team to make sure we're all on the same page as to how we need to deal with that. First deadline comes up at the end of this month, that everybody that potentially is going to claim anything on that FMAG for public entities that responded to that fire and had jurisdiction, they have to submit a form filled out properly to the state by the end of this month. That'll be the first deadline, and then everything else takes time after that.
But the FMAG can only pay for the public portion, not the private portions, right?
That's correct, yes.
So what do we have out there for the landowners that are out $1 million other than their own personal insurance?
We're still in the process of discovering that. Without a state declaration of an emergency, that changes things. It's done on the public assistance programs through the state doesn't kick in on a aggregate level. So each individual has different things that they lost that might be covered by different agencies or groups. And so we're trying to figure all those things out. Yep.
But we're going to turn in for our 270 hours, right?
Yep. We're going to turn in as much as we can. The FMAG, and what I'm being told now, the FMAG reimbursements only cover overtime hours.
Oh,
So once you're into overtime working on the fire response, then they pay for that. As long as you're in regular time, you don't get reimbursed for that.
how many overtime hours did we have?
I don't have those numbers with me. I'm still going to argue that because the fire started on Friday, we did overtime, Friday night, clear through Saturday. Then our overtime clock started over again at midnight on Sunday morning. And so we work straight time until we get, to the middle of that next week. But the fire response that we did Sunday through Wednesday was forced the overtime to get the regular duties done. So I'm going to investigate what the hard line is there. And we will get as much as we can under the rules. One thing that, I know most of you are in the loop on all these things, but that anybody that hasn't already heard, this fire was significant for many reasons, but one of the most was the fact that it, and here comes Jen. She is my EOC finance section chief. Are you here to talk about FMAX stuff? Oh, okay. I wasn't gonna go that deep. I've already moved on. Do you want to know anything Jen has about the FMAG?
Do we get reimbursed from the state for volunteer hours at all?
No. And the FMAG doesn't only give us the ability to get reimbursed for the response, it also comes with money for mitigation projects down the road. That's why we had, one of the reasons we completed the hazard mitigation plan with a whole list of projects. And it's not just specific to this fire or even to fire. It can provide project money for getting backup generators at any public safety facility, police stations, fire halls, hospitals, all those kind of things, plus fire mitigation efforts, fire breaks, all kinds of things are in that plan. And so we'll have to reconstitute that group, the hazard mitigation planning team, all the agencies or a representative from all those agencies to get together and decide on, with the money that FEMA makes available, what projects are a priority and what we want to spend that available money on. I've already been pinged by Lauren Meager, Conservation District, about mitigation specifically to this fire for soil stabilization and all those other things that are mitigation efforts, not for future fires necessarily, but what comes next is flash flooding on the burn scar, just like we saw in Glenwood in October after the Cougar Creek fire. There was 3 feet of black water in downtown Glenwood after that fire. People can attest to that. I saw it. So that can be an issue, especially East County, where they're prone to flash floods already. That can affect everything up into closing the highway 14 and the railroad. Once since I've been here, the 20 years, we responded out there to try and get like 150 some people off of an Amtrak train that was stuck in a mud flow from a flash flood out of what looked like a tiny little ravine. So it can be significant. But anything you want to add? Okay. What I was going to point out was that the one of the significant things, or the unusual things about this fire, is the landscape it was on and how fast it consumed acreage. When the first reconnaissance flight was flown on Saturday morning, the 22nd, it was already at 30,464 acres. That was in the first 18 hours. They flew every 24 hours roughly after that. So by Sunday morning, the next 24 hours, it had grown another 21,000 plus acres to 52,000. And then it grew every day after that, the 24th, 5th, and 6th, 4,000, 3,000, almost 4,000, and then almost 2,000 on the 26th. And that's more ground than most fires cover in their entirety, each and every day up until July 26th, when it was finally forward progress was stopped. So that's why this fire was really a significant issue for not only the county, but also for all the responders and the type 3 and the type 2 teams that came. So any questions about any of that? Okay. And thank you, Jen, for being our finance section chief. Yeah, I know. He's like, it's budget season. Are you kidding me? And I'm like, same thing.
You're gonna have
It's
to put
budget
that
season.
on a resume somewhere at some point in your life, finance section chief, just so you can explain it.
It's on our email signature at the bottom there. She's kept it since COVID. She's a proud member of the EOC. I'm sure of it. No, my reply back to her was, it's fire season, Jan. Why do you have to ask me for budget stuff? So it goes both ways. Moving on with emergency management. As you read there before, there's no updates to the school safety project, DEM volunteer training, grant projects, except for the agreement workbook for the 23 shush was received on August 4th. So we're still waiting for the final executed agreement there. We already talked about the 20 shush and that the need to redo the amendment for that. I was informed this morning that at the Trout Lake Fair, Frank was able to sign up 4 citizens on site and handed out dozens of flyers. So as it always happens, usually it's just the people that are in the affected area. They sign up in mass as soon as something happens and they don't get the message. But now with the publicity of Tunnel 5 fire, right? Losing track of all these, and some of the others, and the Newell Road fire, people across the county are signing up. And so that's a good thing, a very good thing in my opinion. And then I added this training. The UAS team is going to be conducted this coming Saturday. And Bill, I'll let you do this one. It's one of yours.
So yeah, our employee of the month for the month of August is our brand new communications officer, Shelly Whitner. As I mentioned, she finished her training right into fire season, and we are so very glad that she did. And yeah, she's been awesome in jumping in and, you know, handling everything that we're throwing at her.
Well deserved. She's outstanding already.
Is that training a set period of time, 6 months, or is it when we feel you're ready to be out of training?
It is both. So on average, the longest period of training is 6 months. We schedule for approximately 5 months where they have to complete all the work. So it's a matter of completing certifications, completing review of different materials. And then we allow for a couple of weeks for delays. So if they're not catching on or something, we can work with them because training is a big investment. And so we allow for a couple of setbacks on average, 5 to 6 months.
And also for at least a 2-week shadow phase where they're doing the job and their training officer is just overseeing.
Unfortunately, you're a product of your own success now. Now we got to figure out how to pay for it.
Well, the 2 people that are in training right now, yes, we have 1 open slot for a full-time person and 1 casual slot, but we're paying 2 people in training full-time right now.
And I will argue that the coverage would pay for itself.
We'll
right?
figure it out.
Yeah. Which those slots on the org chart will, if you 2 aren't tracking with what Dan's talking about, the org chart was updated and the board authorized hiring of those folks and filling of those if we could. But at that time, it was decided we wouldn't deal with the budget issues until that became necessary. So now we will have to do that in this next supplemental. Because we successfully hired 3 people. However, 1 of those 3 has already dropped out. 2 of them are continuing. What are they in now? Their first month, right? They just finished
first month,
4th week.
And they're doing great because the last couple of nights, if you paid attention to the voices, it was quite a nice thing to hear them on the radio jumping in and helping with specifically with that fire on Rock Creek. And that's where because it didn't grow to where it was and they were able to jump in, we didn't need additional staff. They were already there. And if you listen to the radio traffic, some of that was them jumping in and taking care of things.
Anything else? That's the end of my report.
I have no questions.
Where's the SAR training on Saturday?
The UAS team training?
Yeah.
At the EOC.
Oh, at EOC.
Yep. Sorry, failed to put that on there.
Any questions?
No.
Thank you.
I think.
I'm good.
Okay.
Yep.
Just want to make sure.
Well, thank y'all.
A lot of information.
I know. It's fire season, remember?
That only works so much.
Yeah,
We weren't
overusing.
Oh, yeah, it's one of Debbie and mine's priorities. Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Anything else for the big one?
I don't know.
Did that mean you think we could have a conversation?
No, that means we can't,
Okay,
because F,
I read them.
that's that one, and I is only when it's with legal counsel.
Right.
So technically you can get into what you think might be litigation eventually, but only if you have legal counsel in the room.
Okay.
Are you guys wanting to do an executive or legal counsel?
She was saying she might want to do an executive, but without knowing exactly what she was trying to get an executive for, I just highlighted the two that would be pertinent. And neither is pertinent.
So is it something that we can talk about in open then?
Well, everything's something you can talk about in open if you really want to.
But you don't want to?
It isn't me, it's her, and I would advise against it.
But it is something if we have legal counsel present, we can talk about.
That's what it looks like on that.
Maybe it would come up to what his opinion.
Well, and the way I read you can do it, but you have to inform the person that may be involved that you're doing it, and they have the choice that you do it in public session rather than in private. Is that what that reads?
Correct.
I know it's very hard to follow without. So I might be able to do it generic, Jake. If we have departments or other electeds that potentially have situations that impact the commissioners because we are the legislative body that are the oversight. And when something happens somewhere, we all know it lands here. And when we don't hear of these things or have pre-knowledge of them, and then all of a sudden we have this uproar going on in our county and we're blindsided, we're taking the heat for that and trying to answer questions for that, but we've had no pre-knowledge and can't formulate how do we think about those situations as a board? Where is our direction to these people as a board? And I thought an executive would be good if I felt there were a pending problem to where we could discuss it in executive as a board and formulate responses and direction.
I think your answer is here. Then if that's what you're trying to get to, but I believe you can only do this up here under I when legal counsel is present.
And I have no problem.
Qualify with that one as executive if you had legal counsel present.
Right, and I have no problem with I because that would be potential advice you need as a board.
Yeah, like I said, I think you could do it under I.
You need to do it under I1.
Well, you'd be I3.
I
Legal risks of proposed actions or current practices.
that the agency has identified.
I would think that would be the one, but again, it would be a question. I would say honestly, that would be a question for legal counsel that maybe submit
A question.
and whether it falls under I-Prin 3 there.
What is it? Something you want to write down though?
That's the other negative.
So I don't know what it is.
Or a
So
phone call.
so a phone call and ask that
How do we do
I
it?
would love to discuss this as will this fit?
Okay. Okay, how do we do it?
And if so, then maybe this after. Like at 3:15 or
That's
something?
the problem is we don't necessarily know because we have those interviews, so we're leaving for candidates at 2:30.
2:15.
Well,
Oh,
it's scheduled at 2:30 with candidates.
Oh, okay.
Meeting early. And we don't necessarily know how long those are gonna be, and so scheduling them at a specific time. If we're not necessarily back from our reviews by then, no problem. But, I mean, you can always ask the question, if it isn't pressing that we have to discuss it today, you can at least see then if he thinks it would fall under that, and if that's the case.
We
when
can do
is
it
he
Thursday.
available?
Right.
Can you do it Thursday? Can we do it next Tuesday? Can we do it,
Okay.
whenever?
I'll do that. And then I think in phrasing that question, more for me than how his legal situation or that would be handled, it's more of a working order system for us that evolves around a situation. I'm looking for, like we've talked about before, organization as a board, talking situations through, and what do we formulate as a board? How do we respond in some situations? And he may say that's between how you guys want to come up with it. And so,
again, without knowing exactly what
yeah,
you're trying to get to, I don't know that I can even answer the question.
okay. Yeah, I'll call him.
Because the only thing I could think that it would apply under is that one, and it says council has to be present, so. I would imagine there's exceptions to that rule. If the action is the council, but, yeah, that's, I don't see a way around. Based on my.
Have we went into I before without legal counsel present?
Not that I'm aware of.
Oh, because we always.
The contract negotiation? Yeah, that's publicly bid contract. I is legal cases that are before the county or potentially could be before the county. And I don't know that we've ever had that without counsel in the room.
Okay, anything else?
No.
No, other than, well, we will go there. It's just not have time later. I would like to also add to a workshop, whether it's obviously not this Thursday. I don't believe we're having a workshop next Thursday because of the fair. I don't know if the board is interested in having a workshop next week on Wednesday because of the fair, or even just dragging it out another week or 2 weeks. And taking the hit from the citizens, but we need to sit down and actually have enough time to work through the nuisance code compliance piece of this puzzle and the short-term rentals, and sit down and get it done versus half an hour here, half an hour there, and then we talk about it again in a month and a half.
Well, I agree. I think we need to, this is one of those, after looking all of it, that's again, another antiquated thing that is in our basket. And one thing works against another. We can write ordinance and things, but until we update all our codes and everything to match everything, this is a lengthy process. And we have to have legal help, and we have to have department help to match everything. So unless we start committing to working on it with an end date and set workshops to get it there, we could work on this for years. I would like to see us say, okay, let's take a workshop once a week, even if we have to move it to a Wednesday because of fair, and say 2 hours or 1 hour is going to get set aside for this one specifically. We don't get off on a bunny trail. We actually set benchmarks and get pieces of it done.
Well, that's how I would like to proceed going forward. Is get on a topic, work on the topic. If somebody's got to go do homework or legal opinion or whatever else, that's fine. But we set a stipulation that, okay, we're back in 2 weeks to finish this thing. I want this project done in 30 days or 60 days. And we push to achieve that with as many meetings as we need to actually get it done. Versus we'll talk about it again in 2 months or these little 4-minute conversations. So the other one I had was I don't know that you all got it or not. Probably not. A request from Wasac to consider joining Wasac's action for adjudicated relief against DSHS. So all of the, you've heard this complaint from the prosecutor before in the past, at least you might not have. We have cases in our jail that we can't prosecute because they're not getting the mental health evaluations in a timely manner from the state, and some of the counties are just kicking the people loose. I mean, they're predators. They're kicking them loose because they can't do the speedy trial and get the state to actually do their part with the mental health eval. So Wasac is filing suit against the state and wants all counties on board if possible. So if we're interested in this, we would need to send a board statement to the prosecutor to sign on to this action.
Be a good idea to have a conversation with the prosecutor about it too.
Well, I tried, but you really don't want to know what he wrote back.
What is the suit? Sorry, looking to resolve. I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead and answer Jake first.
I don't know this question.
What did he write back?
I sent an email. It was quite snotty in reply.
Was it yes, we should, or no, we shouldn't?
Neither one of those, and it didn't ask the legal question too. One of my questions was, do we need to, as a board, formally tell you to join this case? And that never got answered either.
So since this is a board pending decision, not just a Mr. Christopher decision, can you distribute your question to Elisa and the answers so that we can see them both too? Then I can read them.
That can be done.
I would like that.
That
helps me.
I also might submit the question again on a true and legal form, one of his legal forms, to see if he answers the question differently than the way he answered it in the email.
Well, we can start with what we have. And then my other question is, what is the
suit?
There's
nothing in the email that he sent back that would.
What's the suit looking to accomplish?
To hold the state accountable for not providing the mental health evaluations that they are deemed that they have to under court order. So they're once again violating their court order that says you need to provide these mental health exams. And they're like, yeah, we'll get around to it.
Can you forward that email
this
as well?
can forward, and then you guys can check this out. But I don't know that he has a date. I want to say there was a August date. They anticipate filing the complaint and the motion during the first week of August. We would like to gather as many co-plaintiffs as possible during the first few weeks of August. So we don't have to decide on this today. We can do it next week. Then again, if we could do it today, great. If not, I get it. But I will. Actually, I don't have, I was going to say, I don't have any typing, so I can just forward it.
Can we also include behavioral health department? So include Director Quinn on it, because this ties in with that. And these come out of the jail, so it'd also be good to have Carmen or.
Well, and
no, I would disagree with that, because this is a matter on whether the county wants to participate in legal action because the state's not doing its job. I don't know how many players we need in that decision. That should be us and legal counsel. And
Well,
I would imagine if you get an update from legal counsel, I'm only guessing that he's going to be 100% on board. So I don't know that there's a real.
there are justification. They're the ones that are being damaged by this. And we've heard it time and time again in here. It's a recycling door. We're having to let them out. There's no help. There's nobody to call.
The ones that are being damaged are us, because we're the ones that represent the people, and the people are the ones that are being damaged when you let a sexual predator out, because the state couldn't give them a evaluation within 2 years.
So as a board, which I always like to work as, I would have preferred when this email came in that we held a workshop or had them in here today and had everybody concerned in the room so we could have talked about this and then formulated a decision as a board. That would have worked for me, just so you know. And now to go about it the other way and invite everybody, but we don't want everybody's experience included in our decision.
This, well, and that's just a disagreement that this doesn't really, sure does it affect those people you're mentioning? Yes. But do they handle trials with this person that's now going to get potentially let out of court? They're not the people that are, it's mainly the judges, the lawyer, and the board that are going to be the decision factor on joining a legal case to sue the state for not prosecuting people. I don't really see how this is a jail superintendent issue or a mental health, behavioral health.
Because as the executives, it's our job to ensure that they're successful. And right now they're not, they're handcuffed. And if we had them in the room, plus the judges, plus the prosecutor, that suits me just fine. Everybody weighs in on this because this is a big impact. This is a big impact to the public because it's a revolving door.
Right. I guess my question is, I don't understand what the purpose would be when the answer from everybody is already yes.
Well, then
we
if
already know the answer is going to be yes from everybody.
We don't know that.
Okay. Then let's schedule a workshop.
But I think we're now, because when did you get the email? We may be too late to respond with that kind of setup. We may need to make a decision.
I already thought we were part of this workshop because this whole issue has been brought up to this board in the past.
Right. I think I know their answers, all of them.
Well, not to them. We've had it in open discussion with those parties, but this board and the prosecutor has already talked about this issue in the past.
As the Board of County Commissioners, we can make the choice of what our stance is for litigation or not litigation, but in all sensibility, you ask for legal counsel before making a decision like that. But I'd like to make that as a board, not as a singular.
Well, it would have to be.
But this happened last week too, when one person contacts the prosecutor and asks for legal counsel over something that's been developed and we haven't seen it as a board, and the answer comes out back to the BOCC with that answer, how do we say Lori Zoller doesn't have a total different idea than the other two commissioners? I don't share it with you. I send it to the prosecutor and I get my answer back. And then I'm supposed to say he answers the BOCC. That wasn't the BOCC. When we ask him questions, I'd like to share them so we can discuss the questions and say, yeah, that looks like what I'm thinking, or could we add this in, and then go out for his discussion. So he knows he's answering the BOCC.
Okay, I think I got where you're coming from. So technically by law, he answers legal questions from the Board of Commissioners,
Correct.
which is two of us. Or the chairman can do it as a single. What you're asking for, and then we kind of changed our verbal policy that any commissioner can ask at any time, because like last year I wasn't allowed to ask questions.
Right.
Without getting my seatmates approval, and sometimes I couldn't get it. So we said any commissioner could do it for any reason, and now you're saying, let's undo that and bring it back, that it
No.
has to get
I still
approval on the
understand
question
it.
before we send it.
My understanding was, of course, if Jake has a question, he can ask him. Of course, if Lori has a question, you can ask him. But you should be able to discern between, is that answer personally for me and what I'm struggling with and what I'm trying to work through? Or is that answer going to give direction to the whole Board of Commissioners? If it's going to give us direction as a board that we're going to sign on to something, I think we all should be involved in it. Because he's answering the BOCC. He's not answering me if I say, gee, I'm struggling with this. What does this interpret to you under law? What does that say? Do I have this right or do I have it wrong? But when he gives advice for a direction and he's directing the board, I would like to be informed of the whole.
To fix that though, would be to pull back the verbal policy that anybody can submit a question. And we would have to work through that question ourselves.
In open public.
In open public session. And come up with
It's so
the
crazy.
correct wording of the question.
Right.
And then send it up.
Okay.
So I think when it
Which
comes,
I'm fine with, because that's the only way you can get, because sometimes answers to questions are based off how the question was asked.
Yeah.
And I think that's where you're trying to get. I also think sometimes questions can be written in a way to get an answer that you're just supposed to take as being correct, where I might say, and if that's, I might add a line to that question that says, and if that's the case, please provide me with the RCW and or the legal briefs that back up your legal advice. So I might want to add to the question somebody wants, just so I can double check the answer, kind of a scenario. So I do think the only answer to fix that, and I'm fine with doing it, is pulling the, anybody can ask a question and it has to go through board approval before it gets sent over.
Well, and I need to think about it for a while.
Like I said, there's pros and cons to it. Because I'm looking at it from the same kind of side of, you know, there was questions I couldn't even ask, which doesn't help you when you're that odd man out.
The whole working relationship, you know, we've committed to talking about it, workshop and working on things. And for me, sometimes it's really dysfunctional if you aren't, it's like a blended family. And when you have one child pitting the parents against each other and the commissioners aren't on solid ground, all on the same page, or if you have, well, mom said I could do it or dad said I could do it situation, in my view, we need to be very open and very gelled as a board for the policy and the direction of this county. Otherwise, you are a blended family trying to give direction to your children. Not to call our departments or anybody else children, but it's just human nature. And we need to be a unified front. I'm good for today. We can move on.
so what's your recommendation for getting there and getting to that understanding? I mean, in essence, we all sit up here 1/3 of a brain.
It's really, really hard with communications, and we all know that. And when there's tough subjects that have to be brought to the public ears, it's really hard to formulate our working relationship, and then everything just gets turned into something else. It's very, very hard. And some of it's very, very hard, and very hard for keeping the county safe for 1,000 reasons. And then it gets really tough not being able to talk about things in executive that we need to talk about.
Yeah, but I guess I'm trying to get to where you're going. I kind of agree with Jake in a way that when you're 1/3 of a brain, it's nice to all have a unified front, but that only works when you're all unified on whatever topic you're discussing. Well,
and it comes to your negotiating skills and who you are as a person, and you take this position and you realize you all represent, especially in our county, different constituents. You all represent different ideas that you come in with that are your passion or whatever you're going to work on. But you're big enough to sit at this table as a body of 3 and to hash it out and come to common ground for the good of the people. And that's where we need to be.
And the only way to do that is through debate.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't have a problem with debate. I have a problem with ethics in debate. If you're going to debate, I would say argue your case on your foundation to make your case. Debate that undermines somebody else's case, picks at somebody else's case, puts words in their mouth. That's not a.
Well, and
it might win you a debate in a court of law, but you're sure not going out to dinner with the person that or making friends.
And coming in,
the person that you did that to.
You know, it was obvious to the public and obvious all over the place that it has become the situation. And I don't care to continue on as the world turns Klickitat on Zoom every week. I want to do business. And for us to move forward, you know, strategic planning would, or a mediator or workshops just between ourselves, we'll start developing those skills rather than just same old every week. And I think there was a blockade, and it kind of got to that point where it was same old every week. And hopefully, being new commissioner, I was the catalyst that we could start different conversations in different working order. And just, and trust relationships, start building, unwiring some things and start building some trust relationships so you understand the other people, where they're coming from, so you can work on those things. But it's going to take time to do that. And we just have to rip off the Band-Aid and set up time to have those times to work on those things. And working on items like the STR and things get us there, because we sit at a table in a workshop and we agree we're going to get it done, and you're stuck to that table and you got to learn how to do it with each other. We don't get in a debate, get mad at this one, get mad at that one, and say, okay, we'll just bring it back next week.
Yes, but I think there's also times, whether it's this board or the legislature or whatever, that you're going to have one member of the body or the non-majority side that just cannot get behind the position of the minority, of the majority. You just have ideological differences. And I don't blame an individual for not being able to negotiate into a unified front if you literally have ideological differences. The difference to me is, how do you handle that difference? And that's more of a personal situation.
Well,
I mean, we have one way how you handle that, and we get about 10 meals a day from that type.
I, as a board of 3, I don't believe that we can't develop those things, knowing your guys' personality and mine, and I can be a hard person to deal with. I believe we can sit at a table and we can figure those things out. And I believe we can get a working order going so we can get some of these things off our list that have been on our
And
table for a
I
long
think
time.
Where I'll give you the credit on this is I do think if we just had a long, open, frank discussion on a workshop on how we would like to be treated by our seatmates, and or debate or to whatever, to set some kind of ground rules so that you kind of understand a little better, that might help. Definitely help in the future, so.
And even though it's painful and even though it seems like, oh man, anything's progress. A little bit of progress is progress. And we've got to start going that way.
We'll figure out a title for said subject and then have her add it on a workshop. And then depending on how far out we are with workshops, because budget's taking them, we might need to consider Wednesdays or something going forward.
Well, and I don't mind having the Wednesday workshop with the short-term rental, and we give 15 minutes to each person vent operating process ideas or whatever they want to do, or where you want to see going, and then we'll just go into work on something. It's going to be a long-term.
How's
fix.
Wednesday, the 23rd look for you guys? I've got something next Wednesday for county fair. Then we have county fair on Thursday.
23rd works for me.
Does that work?
Yep. And that gives us a week to add
Jen?
things to it.
Nope, Jen's gonna say no.
I just wanted to add in that this Thursday, after we go through our budget workshop, that we should be able to gauge how long of the trust was there. It's my goal to wrap this budget up at the end of August. I do have public works split up into 2 workshops because they usually have to be 3 hours each. But
Right. I just don't want to. I don't want to have to rush that and or kick the can down the road with the other things for another month. So if we have to throw another one in.
But, you know,
Okay. Anything else?
No.
All right.
So we're in agreement during the workshop on Wednesday, the 23rd.
Yep. And then I forward you that WASAC letter that you can forward. Prosecutors already seen it.
And you guys
Said it.
wanted to do STRs on that date, so it would be great to send something to Rebecca and Prosecutor Canal about that so that they know they feel included. Since Rebecca's done all this work.
Yeah. We're gonna need to have building, planning, public works, all the entities in the room for that discussion. And yeah. Okay. And then do you have these like draft agendas like you're making now out or something, you know, for the ones that are 2-3 weeks in advance so that we can see them? It'd be nice if there was a little posted board or something so we can see what's on workshop.
What we need to be
agendas
thinking
going
about.
out, so that we can go, oh, well, we can add something else in there.
I'll show you.
Okay.
You entertain a motion?
I would.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to recess for the lunch. Be back at 1 o'clock.
And I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and with discussion, I'll say this will be the time for everybody on Zoom to know that we're gonna log you off and reset our Zoom so that hopefully our mics work this afternoon. All those in favor of recessing for lunch, say aye.
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 Aye.